Good morning, and welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. My name is Chris Rader. I'm happy to be your celebrant today. If you're a visitor this morning, we're very glad you're here. We welcome every person of goodwill, just as you are, whatever body you inhabit, whomever you love, whatever your religious beliefs, you are welcome here. We invite everyone to join us after the service for coffee, treats, and conversation, both in person and on Zoom, but unfortunately, I don't think the Zoom is functioning again this week. Oh, they got it. We got it. Oh, good thinking, everybody. It was not working a half an hour ago, so yay. Hi, folks on Zoom. And folks on Zoom, the order of service is in the chat, along with the lyrics to the songs that we'll all sing together. Julie McAllister is our Zoom host today. Our fellowship is located on the ancestral homeland of the Pasquosa. For thousands of years, the Pasquosa have been stewards of this land, fishing, hunting, gathering plants for medicine and food, and practicing cultural traditions. The Pasquosa still live here. We acknowledge that their land has been taken over because the U.S. government broke treaty obligations and carelessly allowed uninvited white colonizers to settle here. We stand alongside our indigenous neighbors as they continue their traditions and seek to have all their rights recognized, including, we hope, some land within the Wenatchee River watershed. There are some efforts along those lines going on. It's going to take a while, but we stand behind that effort. We acknowledge our shared responsibility to sustain right relations with each other and the land. For more on this subject, please visit our website, cascadeuu.org, under Welcome.
One of my elder colleagues wrote, "Ancient as the home is the temple. Ancient as the workbench is the altar. Ancient as the sword is a sacrificial fire. Ancient as a soldier is a priest. Older than written language is the thought of a nameless one." Religion is the first and the last, the universal communication and communion of the human heart. Differing words describe the outward appearance of things. Diverse symbols represent that which stands beyond and within, and yet each person's hunger is the same, and heart communicates with heart across all barriers. In temperament we differ, yet we are dedicated to one august destiny. Creeds divide us, but we share a common quest for an eternal verity, eternal truth abides beneath all diversities. We are all children of one great love, united in one eternal family. In this spirit, let us be together and let us worship.
The chalice and flame symbolize our congregation gathered in principles and faith. It's an image of our spirituality and our religion. If you at home have your chalice with you, please join us now in lighting it. Here in the sanctuary, let us speak these lighting words in unison. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
Today we're going to do something special. Not something we do, actually we're doing something we've never done before, which is to celebrate people as members who have been members for a while. We all love to share the joys and the powers of community, of congregational life. We welcome people to worship together, to invoke what is highest and good in all the diverse ways we name it, to help one another, to live well, to be part of a much larger community of liberal religious people and Unitarian Universalists around the world, all of which are seeking to embody growth and love and justice. And we connect. We connect in person. We make and sometimes we connect online, and we make each person stronger with what matters most. We share ideas and debate and exploration. And anyone can be a part of this. Anyone can join in our programs, chalice circles, book groups, coffee hours. Everyone's welcome because this is an open, welcoming congregation. Children, in particular, are central to this community, even if they cannot vote in congregational meetings or make dedicated pledges out of all their income. They still identify as UUs, just naturally identify. And they are essential to the life and vitality of this congregation. We also include any person from 14 to 17 who chooses to sign the membership book but still cannot take the legal responsibilities of the legal adult membership in the institution, but the community still remains. But to become a member means more than just that you can vote in congregational meetings. It means that you change, I go to that congregation, or I like the stuff that they're doing, to I am one of those people, to identify with the programs, what happens here. Members get some minor privileges and responsibilities, more than anyone, but everyone can link and choose when they become a member to link their spiritual identity, their own personal history, their own future with a shared history and a shared present and a shared vision of the future. We seek together, our mission says. We seek together inspiration and understanding. We embrace all on their individual journeys, and we serve our local and world communities guided by the values and principles and goals of all who call themselves Unitarian Universalists. We make a difference in the world together, and to become a member is to identify with that, with all these people and with the great institution that we are creating together. So first we're going to welcome into the bonds of the community two people who joined did you know the pandemic was really disruptive to a lot of things? So we had two people who joined just before the pandemic, and they never participated in a Sunday morning ritual in which they were officially welcomed. So that's Bruce Mong and Maxine Mong. And can you guys come up here and stand up here? And I'd like the membership team to come up and join. And then now you're going to be joined by all the other people. We had 5 more people who joined this congregation back on March 20th. And they've been members for almost 4 weeks, not quite as long as the monks, but for a while. And the people who have been members for 4 weeks include Bob Doolittle and Sherry Doolittle. Did they come today? Yeah, okay, over there, Bob and Sherry. Karen Hartman. Karen get here yet today? Karen's back here. She joined. And then Alicia Mann and Sean Mann, and they're bringing their children along with them into the community, joined 4 weeks ago, but then a couple days ago they got really sick, so they can't come today. But they'll I'm sure, that's just kind of part of the life of small children in school. And I'm sure they'll be back and obviously enthusiastically glad to be a part of this congregation. So first, while you're all getting these gifts, I want you to think about the moment when you signed the book, and in front of all these people who are watching you here and online, if you identify with these people, if you are glad that you joined this church, if you are willing to identify and own the traditions and goals of Cascade Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, say, I do. I do. And now all the others who are here, I ask all of you to look at the words that should be printed up on the order of service, right? And say these words. We receive you with open hands and hearts. Once again, we renew our commitment to this religious community. As you increase your fellowship, we are proud and happy to have you among us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The last part of this ritual is sharing coffee and treats at the end of the service. Please go sit down.
And because we didn't have a regular story, we don't have all our children back here, but we're going to send you under our arch to your outdoor classes today. So with the people sitting on the aisle, please stand and form an arch. And the kids are going to go under that arch as we sing a little song. And Natalie and Sarah will lead you outside. Ready, guys? Here's our song. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share.
Deep breath. Let love flow into your body. Feel all that you love and all that loves you, all that supports you. And then as you breathe out peace, ease of spirit, connection to others, beloved community. Breathe in, breathe out in silent prayer or silent meditation. To create peace, deep peace, harmony, and wellness in ourselves and in our relationships is the very heart why we create this community, this congregation, and all the congregations that are connected to it, and all the agencies and people who work for peace and justice and compassion and love in this world. We all long for the quiet village, the peaceful village. Others have different names for it. The pure land, Shambhala, heaven, paradise. I was reading many articles about people who got to see the eclipse, who traveled to small towns and country spaces and looked up and saw the moon pass over the sun's surface. And all those people spoke about something awesome, something spiritual, something moving, and to realize how many thousands of people so close were doing the same thing created a sense of community, of union, of wholeness that people rarely feel. We often speak of being one family, as in the words that we used in the opening. We are all children of one great love. It's beautiful. It is a true sentiment, but it has its limits. Once a colleague of mine noted that people in churches are often describe their churches as homes and family. And then she asked, what do we mean by family? Is it sort of like Cain and Abel family? Two brothers who fought each other? Or maybe it's taking another religious example. It's from the Mahabharata, when Arjuna and his cousins led an entire nation into that massive civil war and death. I remember when I went to visit the Unitarian, ethnic Hungarian Unitarian church in Romania, a little village called Ciucfalva. And I was reflecting on that experience with another colleague who had a different congregation or a different city that was there, where they had their partner church, their partners, and how incredible it was to have this ethnic group of Unitarians. Unitarians were not simply, just an ideological group that had kind of separated out from the mainstream of, they had an identity, a deep sense of identity. They lived in these little villages, these rural villages, and it was clear, one of the things that was very clear is that the child of a Unitarian family was a part of the village, was loved by, cared for, connected to, and all those people felt connected to that child. There was one family that had one of their sons, when he became a young man, ran off with the Hare Krishnas. And then several years later, he came to mom was heartbroken. The whole village felt disturbed by this. And then he came back. He finally got tired of some of the hypocrisy and other parts of that branch of Hare Krishna that he had run into, and realized the unity that he had felt in Unitarianism, and he'd come back to work in the there were greenhouses that grew flowers. But what he did was he taught his mom some vegetarian recipes, because the Hungarians are not really big on vegetarian recipes. And because he had done that, then my host was able to make vegetarian cabbage rolls for me and feel connected. And I talked to her about what I knew of Hare Krishna and the healing that I hoped would come to the families and to the village. And she said, it has already begun, and begun with this visit with our partners from America. That sense of connection. We all long for that community, that feeling of being a village, being a part of the village, and we want there to be an entire world of peaceful villages. I know there's this sort of romanticization of village life, the peace of village life. Before I was born, there was a little piece of music, style of music created by an album called Exotica. And I always loved the quiet village. My dad had played it, and when I was a little kid, it's got bird sounds in it, and see this lovely sense of this kind of mysterious yet otherworldly place that's all peaceful and quiet and kind of happy, and it's got an interesting energy to it. And that was a fantasy, really. The music is created out of a fantasy of some actual places where human beings actually have to live out their lives. And we don't want to live in a fantasy world. We want to know one another. We want to care for one another. We want to connect. And then we hear of the violence. And then we realize how many people are divided. Neighbors from neighbors we heard about today. Neighbors all around the world. Right now, there's an international organization that lists armed conflicts in the world. There are 110 current armed conflicts. Some of these are very small, but with guns in places in the world. Some are international, between nations. The stresses are huge. I watched the movie Dune last week. Dune Part 2. About 50 years ago, I had read the book. 10 years after Frank Herbert had written the book, published it, I read the book Dune. And I knew there was something about it I really liked. I was caught up in the stories and stuff. And as I was watching the movie, I remembered that one of the things I really liked about that book was that it took religion seriously. The religion was not an isolated thing, but it was part of human community. It was part of what made people feel alive, connected, full of power, and that power could lead towards good things, and community and care, or it could lead towards violence and war. The thing I didn't like about that book originally, and I still don't like about the movies, is that they're set really in the middle of the 20th century, or maybe back in the 1800s, when there are these great international powers that were trying to dominate other people, and the best you could hope for was that you would be on the winning side when you joined in a war. And there's this positive affirmation. There's no alternative to war. None at all. It's not described as something else we could have done. Even the great religious order of women are just driving people towards war. They don't know how else to really resolve human conflicts and create true community. But always Unitarian Universalists have believed that the prophet Jesus, that the previous prophets, the Amos and Isaiah, whose words influence the song we sang today, had always told us there is a way to create peace in the world, and it doesn't require murdering other human beings. It's possible. The only alternative offered in the movie Dune is that, well, instead of tanks, you have giant sandworms. Instead of attack fighters, you have giant dragonflies that you can ride around on. That's not an alternative. So I wanted to hold up someone today who at first was filled with a vision of war in a religious sense, and truly believed in war, and then slowly, well, actually, relatively quickly turned away from it. And that was Julia Ward Howe. Julia's a Unitarian. Her minister, her first minister who gave a child blessing on her first daughter was Theodore Parker. Theodore Parker in the 1840s was dealing with gender issues by calling God our mother and father, starting with the mother. He was a creative thinker about religion and what religion can do in our lives, and she was a great poet. As a young adult, she had been raised by a Calvinist, Episcopalian Calvinist preacher. Her dad was a priest. And then she said she was listening to people like William Channing and Ralph Emerson and having conversations with Margaret Fuller. And in these conversations, she underwent this conversion, spiritual liberation. And later she wrote, I studied my way out of all the mental agonies which Calvinism can engender and became a Unitarian. She married a man named Samuel Gridley Howe, who was 10 years older than she. She was an active writer, even then, before she was married, thinker. She published several books of poetry and essays, all against the wishes of her husband, who wanted her to stay at home and not be so public. Despite this difference of opinion about women's roles, they came to admire and even respect each other in a good friendship. And that began with their shared and active opposition to slavery. They believed that the ownership, the debasement of other human beings was immoral. It was wrong. It was not just simply causing suffering. It was truly causing a universal enmeshment in evil. And they wanted to oppose it in any way they could. And of course, when civil war broke out, they understood immediately what that war was about. And at one point, Julia Ward went to see a review of Northern troops, and there was a Confederate attack. And they had to leave the field. And as they rode home to safety, she heard the soldiers who were marching into war singing a very popular song of the day, one of the top 40 songs of the 1800s, John Brown's Body. And one of her friends said, Julia, as a poet, surely you could write better lyrics for that catchy tune. And that very night, these words poured into her, and she wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. It just came to her. She wrote in the darkness so she wouldn't wake her children up. The lyrics are published in the Atlantic in 1862. And as the work of the war went on, people began to reflect theologically on the meaning of the war. And the song eventually, even after the war, swept the northern states as the anthem of the Civil War, a theological justification of the horror of brothers shooting brothers and cousins shooting cousins. Right? My eyes have seen the glory of the coming Lord. He's trampling out the vintage of the grapes of wrath. He's loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. It's all very militaristic. And then it speaks about Jesus and says, as he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. After the war, that song made her more popular, and she was a frequent speaker and writer, debating with men and women on the leading ideas of the time. And she had this sense of this new domain, this public sphere that she could be active in. She said, it made clear to me that the role of true womanhood was in direct relationship to the divine plan and person as a purpose, as a free agent, fully sharing with all human beings every human right and every responsibility. This discovery, she said, was like an addition of a new continent to the map of the world. So there's, in her own conversion to Unitarianism, and then at this moment where she's speaking and connecting with other people, is the first source of peace. It's an inner sense of the rightness and the goodness of your life and how you can live rightly and well on this earth. When you breathe, you can always use breath to retouch that dimension of your reality and being. Steve, I haven't seen the recording yet of the service last week, but Steve touched, a lot of people have told me he did a great job, all of us did a great job of invoking what prayer, meditation, awareness can be all about. And we still have some little magnets back there if you want to use those as reminders. So that being able to find that, and as Vern was talking about his neighbor, I just kept wondering what made this neighbor so angry. What made this neighbor not let go of her violence, but wanting constantly to fight? Is there something that could have happened that would have let her not be quite so anxious and frightened? It begins in human individuals. It begins with a sense that you are connected to others and that others care about you. But then, of course, if you feel the people that you care about are being threatened, then we get into other situations. We begin to wonder about violence. But Julia was feeling calmer, she was feeling firmer, she found herself among new friends. And then in the 1870s, she started reading about the thousands of men, especially men, but other people dying in France and between France and Northern German Confederation. And as a mother, and as a human being, she said, I felt disturbed by the cruel and unnecessary character of that contest, that war. She described it, it's a return to barbarism. The issue could have been easily settled without the bloodshed. The people, leaders, bellicose leaders, arrogant leaders in the world don't have a community in which they feel supported. Or if they do, they use that to fight against the other leaders who they hate. We see this over and over again. War is their primary option, or their first option, or their ultimate option. And we have seen Russia twice within the last couple decades just decide to take pieces of land using military force. And the only response, because there's no consistent, cohesive community, there's no global village in which we all can find our needs met and listen to one another and come back and make some legal agreements. I'm glad Vern had legal resource. I'm glad there's a culture that allows for something other than physical violence to resolve your conflicts. We don't have that in the world yet, but we have always believed it was essential, absolutely essential. Julia Ward heard this, she thought about this war, this another war, yet another violent war in which people were killing one another, and she decided if she was going to do something about it. She made a proclamation, Mother's Day proclamation is what she called it, little pre-Mother's Day stuff. But she wanted all mothers to come together. And I'm going to read her proclamation or parts of her proclamation, but I'm going to take out the obvious bipolar gender norms in which she was living. Arise then, all people of this day. Arise, all who have hearts. Whether your baptism be of water or of tears, say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our people shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our children shall not be taken from us to unlearn all we have taught them of charity and mercy and patience. We of one country will be too tender of those to allow our children to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own, and it says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor does violence indicate possession. As we have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summon of the wars, let us now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let us meet to bewail and commemorate all the dead, and then let us solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own, the sacred impress, not of Caesar's, but of the holy, the divine, of God. She wanted peace between all nations because that was her religious vision. That was the Unitarian vision, find a way. She went in 1893 to the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago, and as a lifelong Unitarian Christian, someone who saw Jesus' teachings as universal truth, she was impressed with a sense of community across all religious differences, people coming together and invoking that same vision she had of that peaceful village called the earth, all humanity together. She spoke about religion never being about dominating other human beings or degrading other human beings. The only true religion was one that created community and lifted everyone up. Now, war. The war in Gaza is not only murdering and destroying Palestinian villages, it is breaking apart all human beings. Those people who wanted to undo the centuries of villainy against Jewish people are now fighting against the people who are Jewish, losing a sense of we're all in this together, and how can we solve this together? The two-state solution has been held for quite some time, but there's no one who has the power to actually figure out how are we going to get there? How are we actually going to create a second state in the midst of, because unfortunately Americans and Europeans, when they created a nice state for the Jews to say, well, we're really sorry for what we've done for 2,000 years, here's a nice place for you to live, they just didn't think about who was already living there, right? We've got to think about everyone and find more and more structures, more and more pathways where we can come together and work this out, not using aggressive military violence. To make the world again a peaceful village. So let us reach out to all those who work to increase and expand about peacemaking done right now. There are people who are trying to heal things, healing individuals, giving resources to the poor, people who have experienced violence in their lives. Reach out to those and connect with those. To make peace is to seek justice, to temper the barbarians, to help people bloom, to form across the globe a network of peaceful villages. As we move to the end of the worship service, let us remember how we are all connected, and the connections, the unity of spirit and mind guide us, can uphold us, no matter how difficult the days are to come. The vision of beloved community can hold us and guide us, no matter how painful the divisions we find between people. A spirit of true peace, which is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of loving justice, guide our footsteps as we go forth from this place.
And now, as we extinguish our chalice, please join in saying the words printed in your order of service or on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now let's form a circle around the perimeter, and if you would prefer not to hold hands, just hold shoulders.